Our opening words today are from Nathan Ryan, and it's entitled Renewed Hope for This World. Be it real or metaphor, whatever is in your backpack or your briefcase or your purse that is weighing you down, leave it behind. Whatever you are carrying that is keeping you distracted or caught up in shame or guilt or hopelessness, leave it behind. If you need it, it will be there when we're done. But for now, just let it go. Come into this place with open hearts. Come into this place with a soul that has remembered how to be tender again. Come into this place with a renewed hope for this world. Come into this place to build a world we've always been worthy of and have always dreamed of.
Our gathering music this morning is a chant that is meant to help us relax into the space of worship and breathe together. So I'm just going to play that and invite you in your own environment to sing along as you feel moved.
Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Holy
baby,
and
you don't have to
holy
carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones.
Will you
let go, let go.
Breathe
Loose
in,
and loose,
I
baby.
and
breathe out,
Don't have to
I
carry the
I
weight
open,
of the world in your
I
muscles
soften.
and bones.
Will you ease this pain?
Breathe in, let it be. Breathe out,
don't have
let
to
it
carry
go.
the
Let
weight
it
of
be.
the world in your
Let it
muscles
go.
and bones.
Will you ease this pain? Holy
baby,
and
you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones.
Will you
let go,
this
let go.
pain?
Holy baby,
and
you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones.
Will you
let go,
this pain?
Holy baby,
and
you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones.
Will you
let go, let go.
I open,
baby,
I soften.
and
Let it be.
have to carry
Let it go.
the weight of the world in your muscles and bones.
Will you
let go,
Holy
baby.
and
You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones.
Will you
let go, let go. Loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. So good morning. My name is Karma, and I am honored to serve as the minister of the Unitarian Universalists of Central Delaware and to welcome you all here this morning. However you arrive today, know that you are welcome as you are, no matter who you are, whom you love, where you've been, what your religious beliefs are or aren't, whether your heart is soaring or in despair today. However you arrive, you and all of who you are welcome here. Want to let you know that we do have today a Social and Environmental Justice Committee meeting. Anyone is welcome to come to that. It is at 11:30 a.m., just after service. There's a separate Zoom link. And if you need that, you can certainly let us know. We will have our regular community check-in on Tuesday evening at 7. There will be, there's a Zoom link in the e-blast that went out, and that'll also be posted on our Facebook group. We are, as always, grateful for the technology that lets us to gather together in these times of social distancing and physical separation. And when we make mistakes today or when there are delays, we beg your patience and just invite you to take a deep breath in and out during those moments of pause. This is our time to be together, to worship, to call upon hope. And so let us do that together.
We light this chalice, keeping in mind the chalices that are lit throughout the world in Unitarian Universalist churches. And our chalice lighting words today are by Gregory David Miller. This fire is a reminder of the light within us all, the yearning for freedom, the longing for truth, the flame of intuition, the torch of conscience. We dedicate this service to the remembrance of this holy light. Please join with me in reading the affirmation, which is in the chat box. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is law. This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Our opening song today is We Are Singing for Our Lives, and we invite you to sing along in your own environment.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are queer and cis together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are queer and cis together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
And our story for all ages today is a story for all of us, but especially if you've got small ones or young ones at heart, bring them near. And with luck, that video will play momentarily.
And now it's time for our UU moment. This statement is from Susan Leslie. It's a post-election statement. And Susan Leslie is the Congregational Advocacy and Witness Director for UUA. Ballot initiatives provide a real opportunity for grassroots initiated social change. And they are the most direct way for people to get the issues they care about on the ballot. Democracy and justice were on the ballot in these 2020 elections, and we saw some significant wins. These probably all didn't make the news. Voters rejected every effort by state legislatures to restrict ballot initiatives and limit direct democracy in Arkansas, North Dakota, Florida, New Jersey, and Virginia. Voters in those states passed election reforms on gerrymandering and redistricting. Oregon voters passed campaign finance reform. And in Nevada, a voters' Bill of Rights was added to the state constitution. In Florida, over 60% of voters passed a measure to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. In other economic justice measures, Colorado voters won paid medical and family leave for workers, and Nebraska voters passed payday lending reform. Strategic ballot initiatives are direct democracy tools for liberation that can be leveraged as part of a larger movement to build multiracial democracy that centers Black and Brown, LGBTQ, low-income, migrant, and other communities that live under systemic oppression. Through these successful initiatives, we, the people, demonstrated what it means to prioritize people's needs, invest in our communities, and resist criminalization and white supremacy. Susan Leslie's words, what I can say is that when we bring the issues we care about and our values into the public conversation and get on the ballot, we win. When we expand the vote and invest in the organizations that create infrastructure for organizing, we win. That's how we build and transform power. Many of the 2020 ballot initiatives helped move us towards racial and economic justice and helped galvanize voters to participate in democracy. That's how we win. That's our faith in action, in solidarity and hope. This is the part of our service that we call Joys and Concerns. It's a time when we offer one another the opportunity to share very briefly what is most on our hearts right now. Life's celebrations and concerns. As you do so, we invite you to light a candle in your own space. Through the action of sharing and kindling a flame, we give energy to our best thoughts, meditations, sympathies, celebrations, and prayers. We hold these as sacred in our own collective hearts. At this time, we invite you to change your view to gallery view in the upper right-hand corner of your screen so that you can see everyone who's here. As you feel led, please unmute your microphone and share your joy or concern, and light your candle if you have one. You can watch the mute signals in the lower left of each person's video stream to see if anyone else is on mute. It's best if we share one at a time. Please mute your mic after you have shared. We light one final candle for the joys and concerns that were not spoken by those of us here, and in solidarity with others in our community who will not be with us today. A central part of our worship in person and online is the opportunity we all have to practice the art of generosity. Our gifts to UUCD are what allow this congregation to thrive with a common vision to nurture our spirits, build community, and change the world. We are grateful to you for the many ways you support our community, including your financial pledges and offerings. Your gifts truly translate into lives changed. Every part of our ministry, from the worship that grounds us in our values, to the community gatherings that connect us, to our children's education, to our social justice outreach and actions, are supported by your gifts. Thank you for your passion and your generosity. For those who are making pledges or who want to contribute to this community, you may continue to write checks and mail them to us, or you can give online. There are instructions to do both of these on our website at uucd.org. Just click Support UUCD on the menu bar. You can do that now during this offering song or at any time that's convenient.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Oh, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until the killing of black men, black mother sons, is as important as the killing of white men, white mother sons. That which touches me most is that I had the chance to work with people, passing on to others that which was passed on to me. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until to me, young people come first. They have the courage where we fail. And if I can but shed some light as they carry us through the veil, the older I get, the better I know that the secret of my going on is when the reins are in the hands of the young who dare to run against the storm. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. No need in the clock for power, no need in the light just to shine on me. I need to be one and the number as we stand against tyranny. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way a struggle survives. And we sing, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom
our centering, I'm going to read a few paragraphs from Rebecca Solnit's book, Hope in the Dark. Social, cultural, or political change does not work in predictable ways or on predictable schedules. The month before the Berlin Wall fell, almost no one anticipated that the Soviet bloc was going to disintegrate all of a sudden. Any more than anyone else, even the participants foresaw the impact that the Arab Spring or Occupy Wall Street or a host of other great uprisings would have. We don't know what is going to happen or how or when, and that very uncertainty is the space of hope. Those who doubt that these moments matter should note how terrified the authorities and elites are when they erupt, that fear signifies their recognition that popular power is real enough to overturn regimes and rewrite the social contract. And it often has. Sometimes your enemies know what your friends can't believe. Those who dismiss these moments because of their imperfections, limitations, or incompleteness need to look harder at what joy and hope shine out of them and what real changes have emerged because of them, even if not always in the most obvious or recognizable ways. Now I'm going to read some excerpts from Ruth Bader Ginsburg's book, My Own Words, and also a paragraph from an interview she did for The Atlantic. I have lived long enough to see big changes. Who would believe, for example, in the 1950s, when Justice Sandra Day O'Connor and I graduated from law school, that two women no law firm would hire simply because we were women would one day be seated on the highest court in the land? Or that the President of the United States would be an African American, himself the child of an interracial marriage? Yes, we still have a long way to go to ensure that all people in our land enjoy the equal projections of the laws. But considering how far we have come, there is good cause for optimism about our country's future. Yet, courts are not leaders in social change. They follow after movement in the larger society. That was true with respect to racial justice. It's true now with the women's movement. It's true with the LGBTQ movement. How long that discrimination lingered when people were hiding in the closets? Change occurred only when they came out and said, this is who we are and we're proud of it. Once they did that, changes occurred rapidly.
This morning, at this historic time in our nation's history, rather than having one person, namely me, reflecting, we thought it might be more helpful to have a dialogue or an exchange of ideas. So Michael and I are going to be offering some reflections from our own perspectives in conversation with one another. That's been delightful to have throughout these weeks leading up to today. This reflection, of course, is only a jumping off place for us together, and we hope that as a community we'll continue to discuss and discern and act together in the days and weeks to come. What we're hoping to do in this time is to say something that's relevant to the circumstances of our nation and thus our own lives, and to do so grounded in the values of Unitarian Universalism. We UUs have a lot to say about what's at stake for us these days. And we really want to engage this complicated and crucial reality with integrity and honesty and faithful intention. What is true for us, Michael and me, and perhaps for many of you, is that we're feeling and thinking a number of disparate things in this time, not all of them easily reconcilable. For example, we have both experienced disappointments in this tense week, and yet we ultimately both refuse to give up hope. And so we want to name some of those disappointments because it's important we don't pretend they aren't there. And also, and perhaps more importantly, lift up some examples of hopefulness that might keep us moving forward. So I'm going to start by naming one of my disappointments this week, and that is that it was a relatively small margin by which the election was won. Earlier in the week, I kept saying to myself as we were all on pins and needles waiting, and I kept hearing other people say it too, it should not have been this close. After children in cages, after withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord and turning our backs on the planet in some ways, after division between people in the US has been intentionally deepened, after almost 10 million coronavirus cases and nearly 235,000 deaths, disproportionately affecting people of color and the poor, after lies upon lies upon lies, after public mockery of people with disabilities, subjugation of women, attacks on civil liberties for LGBTQ people, xenophobic immigration policies, refusal to acknowledge the systemic racial injustices still plaguing our nation, and many other et ceteras, it should not have been this close. The fundamental issues of human rights and human decency that were and are still on the line at this moment in our country should not have so divided the people of the United States that the vote was this close. And so I have a profound disappointment about this. And another reason for that disappointment for me is the impact that that reality had on many marginalized groups. Now, this disappointment is obviously somewhat personal. Those who are in so-called minority groups grit their teeth every election, wondering if basic liberties will be stripped away and hoping that maybe, just maybe, this time, their basic worth as human beings will be affirmed by their own country. Of course, I should say, the illusion that people of either party are a monolithic group all thinking and motivated by the same things is just that, an illusion. The binary, in this case and most others, does not serve us well because we desperately need to understand one another. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed by the impact I witnessed on queer people, Black and brown people, immigrants, dreamers. With hatred and overt disenfranchisement of these and others becoming so much more open and blatant in the last years, many were longing for a much more clear statement that this ugliness is not okay, not who we want to be, and that we truly want to move together in a more unified way towards a world in which everyone is valued. Now, I know in my head that the message being sent by this election experience is not that clear, but my heart hurts a little. I'm disappointed that this has been such a painful week for so many people who feel as if their friends, family, and neighbors have told them how much they matter, or don't, as the case may be.
I too have some disappointments. And as we noted, it's important to bring these to the fore. I fear our political and media systems are not serving us well and are in fact dysfunctional. We may not be willing to do more other than rearrange the furniture in an otherwise sinking ship. For far too long, the progressive issues which appear most meaningful to working class voters have been all but forgotten by the major parties. Media is complicit in this. For example, the issue that polls most positively across either major party is healthcare for all. It polls about 70% across the board. But even if we only asked Republicans, we still find a plurality of support. Because the healthcare industry donates heavily to political candidates, this issue is not a part of either party's political platform. As a consequence, most voters, when casting their ballot on a national level, may find their motivation to vote is spurred not by policy positions, but by opposition to the other side. We were denied the right to vote in support of something, and meaningful policy discussions were for the most part spare and pitiful. If we cannot address these systemic issues with our political discourse, I'm afraid we're in for much worse times ahead.
And despite of these disappointments, which we have, Michael, and others that others in this community may be holding, I know that we are resilient people, people of hope, people of faith. And it is so important that we lean into that more than ever. In fact, there were just as many examples of hopefulness this week for me as there were of disappointment. And not just examples last night here in Delaware of hopefulness, but elsewhere. I was listening to one interview, for example, with an immigrant man who was in the streets of DC on Tuesday night, not protesting, but keeping vigil in hope and wanting his young children to understand the value of democracy. And his 9-year-old son interrupted the interview as he was talking with the reporter to tell the reporter in his own words, "We are for peace and not terror." I found myself moved to tears by the idealism and the conviction in this young boy's words. And it reminded me that there are many, many passionate people who do believe that we can be better and be better together, and who do want to do their best to make it so. I'm especially encouraged by the youth, and my hope is buoyed that they may yet be able to forge progress and understanding in ways we may not have been able to yet.
I too see a lot of hope. I'm gonna cite the beginnings of this hope in the 2018 midterm elections, where more women and people of color ran for office than ever before in our nation's history. Many of these people won. The incoming congressional freshmen were the most diverse we had ever seen. As amazing as that was, the 2020 House of Representatives will have even more women and people of color. And for many of these folks, gender and race were more than just an identity. Identity alone does not determine one's position on policy issues. Just to keep in mind, Republicans ran a large number of women, and many of them won. There are those who also define themselves by their advocacy of progressive politics. These include issues such as a $15 minimum wage, healthcare for all, a Green New Deal, elimination of student loan debt, and addressing systemic racism in our criminal justice system. The group of progressive politicians known as the Squad were all re-elected by very large margins. They will be joined by a former nurse, Cori Bush, in Missouri. Cori Bush won her office by unseating a 20-year veteran congressperson who had inherited the office from his father. Over in New York State, Mondaire Jones, one of the first 2 queer Black congressmen, was elected to represent Westchester County, of all places, a majority white community where the median income is $93,000. In the district just to the south of Mondaire Jones, Congressperson Jamal Bowman unseated a 16-term congressional chairperson named Elliot Engel in the primary, and now joins his fellow progressives to advocate for these progressive issues. These are all issues, by the way, that poll remarkably well, so it's no wonder that voters are enthusiastic when offered the opportunity to vote for something meaningful. This recent election, when voters were given the opportunity to support ballot initiatives that would mandate a $15 minimum wage, they did so by very large margins. In Florida, the initiative passed by 62%. Note, neither of the major candidates got 62%. Likewise, the 5 states which had initiatives decriminalizing marijuana saw each of these win by margins much larger than at the top of the ballot. Progressive initiatives on the ballot tend to encourage even more people to get out and vote. They then report that it feels empowering to support specific issues they think are important. Just imagine what a progressive candidate could accomplish if they were allowed to fairly compete and give voice to the issues that have real meaning for their constituents.
There were also plenty of examples this week of people going out of their way to be kind to others, and I just don't think we should minimize the importance of that. Being kind to people, even those that are very different than they are, makes a huge difference. There have been plenty of people this week who have expressed pretty strong feelings of disgust, but have also said, I refuse to concede my values of love and justice, of basic human decency, of being kind, of helping others when it's up to me, no matter who they are. It can be quite easy to get lost in political polarity, and it's so essential that we come back again and again to what matters most, to the principles that ground us. It is true that our Unitarian Universalist faith and the beloved community that we're always trying to shape and live up to offers rich resources for us in these times and always. It's so important, for example, in times when divisiveness seems unretractable, to remember that we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and that we are committed to justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. When it seems like our country's particular expression of democracy may not be working, we need to call ourselves higher and reassert again that we believe in the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process. As impossible as it may sometimes seem, we UUs insist that the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all is worth our committed and continued effort. These principles may appear and may even feel to us sometimes lofty, at least by today's standards. But when we choose to live them day by day, we fill our hearts with hope and increase our chance of real progress.
We note that this recent election broke some records with respect to the number of people motivated to register and then actually cast a ballot. Both candidates broke records. It does not bother me that voters of both sides of the political spectrum were strongly moved to become more civically engaged. I understand how easily motivated many of us are when pushed by hate or fear. But hate and fear alone are not going to change the material conditions of a people whose needs are not getting met by either party. They flit back and forth, the voters do, hoping against hope that something will change and that our elected representatives will finally address meaningful policy change. As long as it remains more profitable to simply fundraise off of fear-mongering, neither party is motivated to offer meaningful policy change. They simply blame each other for the lack of progress. While creating a political vacuum where nothing will be accomplished, the old guard, the old politicians, inadvertently give rise to a new breed of politician who maybe more authentically represent the concerns of people, poor people, and working class people, the people generally ignored by the wealthy donors who financially support both established parties. These new politicians raise money from direct individual donations, while the party apparatus desires to spend obscene amounts of corporate donations to perpetuate the status quo, and often fail. The dedicated populist candidates focus instead on policy issues that will make the biggest difference in the lives of their constituents. When they are occasionally able to break through the prison of our broken political discourse, they are surprisingly successful. They may appear scary to the old guard and often unfairly criticized by traditional media, but when voters hear the progressive platform, they are enthusiastically supportive. We need only to look at the margins by which they win. The progressive platform espoused by these politicians are remarkably aligned with our UU values: a living wage, universal health care, a Green New Deal to address climate change, etc. This platform dares to ask for fundamental and systemic change. We discover that in setting our sights high, we actually become more hopeful and effective. By putting our beliefs into actions, we may begin to transcend the limitations of our failed politics and motivate even more people to keep on moving forward.
And so, on the spectrum between disappointment and hope, our faith urges us to choose hope and to invest ourselves in it. This is truly a moment when we can reaffirm this choice. We need it to inspire the work we must do after this moment. I am reminded of the words of Howard Thurman, and I'd like to close with them. Howard wrote, "Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve, that in fair weather or foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve." It is a mantra we may need to utilize both personally and communally in the days and weeks ahead, as together we keep on moving forward in hope. May it be so. For our closing song today, we invite you to sing along with the words of the song by Pat Humphries, "Keep on Moving Forward." And we have a little video montage that will accompany that. So let us sing together and lift our hearts in hope. Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Sigamos adelante. Siempre adelante, siempre adelante, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on loving boldly, keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly, never turning back, never turning back. Amaremos con pasión, siempre con pasión, siempre con pasión, sin volver atrás. Sin volver atrás. Gonna reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. Never turning back. Never turning back. Vivamos sin fronteras, siempre sin fronteras, siempre sin fronteras, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on being hopeful.
Gonna keep on being hopeful.
Keep on being hopeful. Keep on being hopeful. Never turning back. Never turning back. Tenemos esperanza. Siempre esperanza. Siempre esperanza, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on moving forward,
Keep on moving,
keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, never turning back.
We're never turning back.
never turning back, never turning back.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing words today are adapted from Robert Kaufman. We have come together to share our deepest concerns, speaking and singing words of inspiration and hope. We have committed ourselves to do what we can to ease the burdens of those who suffer, to stand for decency and compassion. We have pledged to work for a more wholesome environment for us and for all the generations that will follow. It is when we convert these things into loving and responsible action throughout the week that we make a difference. And it is many people doing this together day by day that will transform our society and make our world better. This is our hope, and it is our commitment.
Our virtual worship has ended, but our connection to one another and to the hopefulness that we've talked about today endures. Go from this place in peace. And before we move into virtual coffee hour, where we want you to be invited to have more discussion with one another, I want to let you know that the Square site issue will be fixed by this afternoon. That was on our website that was brought to our attention. So we'll get on that right away.